Boom. Welcome to another episode of R35. Excited for this one. Brand new scenes, brand new digs, right? I love the scenery. It was good. Really excited for you guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you jump on getting RM35, our system to help you break free from those cycles and rewire your mind, restore your identity.
Yep.
And then, if you like this episode, you might as well like it and share it.
Yeah.
So get the message out. For sure. Yeah. What are we going to talk about today?
I think the thing that I was thinking about, what's some of the psychology about why we get stuck in porn addiction and why we have this sexual overdrive in a lot of ways, and what are like the root causes of it, right? So I'm driving here and kind of getting ready to come down, and I'm thinking about like when I was super promiscuous in the world and I was trying to get with girls all the time, I was like, what? Yeah, sex is fun for sure, right? I mean, you can't get around the fact that there's a lot of awesomeness about sex.
Yeah.
But when you're just trying to hook up, there's something else going on. It's more than just that, right?
100%.
And so I was thinking like, what was it about me that I needed to, what part of my identity was fractured that I needed to score with these women, right? And so I'm meditating through that. I'm thinking about that. And this is something I've been knowing about myself for years. And for me personally, when I would try to hook up with somebody, it was always about, could I get this girl into bed? Am I a man enough? And it was more the egotistical side.
Yeah.
I was never going to violate somebody or whatever. So it wasn't just purely the sex act. For me, it was the egotistical act.
It was like the gaming. Well, if I'm here, for me, it was gaming. It was a game.
Okay.
I was like, could I actually do this? Was I doing all the right things to get this done? And because I knew what the end game needed to be.
Right.
Yeah.
So for me, it was all about ego. Like what I need to somehow get like accepted by this woman in a certain way. So there was an acceptance factor that I, subconsciously didn't even know that was there as a young man. I didn't really put two and two together. But
we don't really.
I'm young, dumb, and full of cum in my 20s, and that's it, right? And then just have all that testosterone pumping and want that sexual gratification. But at the same time, for me, there was a psychology there that was definitely, because of some of my dad issues and all this kind of stuff, just not having a father and not being validated a lot as a kid, right? For me, that acceptance by a woman was super validating, right?
In the moment. For sure.
And so, if a woman lets you into bed with her, you feel like you are accepted, you feel validated, like they see something in you that's worth getting with.
Right.
So
they're willing to give you something.
And which is really weird, because sex is emotional for women. For guys, it's just physical a lot of times. It has that emotional component if you're especially in a marriage covenant. But, it's largely physical when you're just promiscuous out in the world. But the psychological component for me was that acceptance and all that kind of stuff. And so as we talk about porn and why we get into this, what I'm discovering more, especially as we take guys through heart healing and freedom and talk to them about deliverance and all this kind of stuff, we're seeing that some of these guys really find their acceptance actually through pornography. They imagine themselves as that guy in the video.
Mm-hmm.
And that guy is always talking the girl usually, but there's a lot of scenes where guys are talking women into getting into bed with them. And you feel like you're that guy, right?
You feel like you're the one who actually did the act, made the move, was able to get it. And you're like, oh, I could actually
sweet talked her into the bed, and she accepted you and performed the sexual act, right? So I was just blown away by how many guys the pornography is about acceptance.
Yeah.
The physical act is there for sure, but it's the psychological acceptance that they so desperately needed, which I think is fascinating.
It is. Yeah. And when you break it down and peel back the why, it's not just that I'm doing the act and I don't want to do this. You're like, yeah, cool. But why are you doing it in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. So what we're finding is the peel back is it's a form of being accepted. And that acceptance creates that like, oh, I want to get that again. I want to continually get accepted because once you're done, as you know, like you walk out of that bed, wherever you hooked up or wherever you ended up finishing the video, you get right back into reality.
For sure.
So then where's the first rejection come from?
That's what it's all about. You got to go back and trace that root issue out. Like I said, for me, it was a lot of deep abandonment and probably perceived rejection, but more like abandonment stuff with my dad, where I didn't get a lot of the validation. I had a great mom. She did a great job in all the different areas, but my dad, I never got coached, mentored. So there was a lot of emotional distance from him, right?
Okay.
And that left a gaping hole in my soul. And, I tried to fill that up with either alcohol or a lot of promiscuity. And so I think what you just said is brilliant. And it's like we talk about in heart healing a lot of times is we have to not just look at the fruit or the behavior that somebody's evidencing, but what's the root that's driving this kind of stuff, right? So for me, it was rejection and abandonment for my dad, right?
Which is interesting because you think if guys like you never hear about guys having daddy issues,
Right.
Not always. When I was coming into age, you typically talk about like you knew the girl with daddy issues was the one you were gonna have a better time with, right? But you never talk about guys having daddy issues because I mean, for some guys growing up, it's like that's kind of gay. You're like, well, not really, because if you're having an issue with a leader who's a man, who's supposed to be that emulation of what a man is supposed to be,
Right.
but then you don't have the acceptance of that and actually the teaching and coaching like you're talking about. And then that shows up as finding acceptance with the female persuasion. And then because they can provide us with some level of acceptance, it's a fill in the void in the other way.
100%. I had an egotistical need to be built up by my father. He didn't.
Yep.
So then I'm not homosexual. So I'm going to go out into the women world, somebody who's going to feed that ego. And my ego, like if I got a girl into bed, it was egotistical, right? So in this same situation, when we're watching pornography, we feel that egotistical satisfaction is also granted, not just the sexual act, right?
Yeah, there's way more to
Way
it.
more to it.
There's way more to the build, even like the getting away with something. Right. That's part of it too. You're like, look what I just got away with, right? Talking about porn, you're like, it's a hidden thing for a lot of people. So if I'm hiding from it, I'm getting away with this. And there's some level of that, like, dude, confidence, ego
And that's so true. Like when you are, let's say you're married and you're flirting with another woman, you know, that secrecy is very powerful, right? There's something happening. Exactly right. And so you have to look at that as well. Why do I want to keep this in secret? Because if it gets exposed and somebody finds out, especially your bride, if they find out you've been flirting with another girl, you're in for a world of hurt, right? Or especially if you're trying to get them into bed. So that secrecy component is also really important too, right? Like, you know, we can do this stuff in secret, but because if people knew what we were doing in dark, our reputation would be ruined.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be the friend of a guy who's a porn addict or, you know, is getting caught watching porn.
Yep.
Right. So,
Yeah.
And-
No, it's good. Okay. So back to you, because we run down a bunch of different trails. So so the acceptance part is needing acceptance from a physical component and a replacement of, which is a temporary replacement. So then how do you really hone in the fact that that's kind of the root? So we go back to origins and gaps, and then what? So what do we do from there?
well, you have to address it, right? I mean, this is where the homework and the difficulty comes in. This is why we encourage you guys to go through your homework and do your journaling and all that kind of stuff. And it's ugly, dude. You got to look deep inside. You know, you got to
be ugly. It's okay.
But it's also something that we as men don't really want to confront a lot of times. We like to push our poop down and not address it. We just want to bury it, like act like it's not there because we're kind of taught that only chicks talk about their emotions and blah, 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 blah. Well, whatever, dude. You were created in the image and the likeness of God. God himself has emotions. He created you to have emotions. Emotions are actually a beautiful thing. But when they get damaged, when they get trashed, you know, they need to be addressed. So we have one of the things that Jesus said in Luke 4 is that he said he came to heal the brokenhearted and to set at liberty all who are oppressed. Well, if you're in porn addiction, you're definitely oppressed.
100%.
So, but your heart also needs to be healed. And that sounds so touchy-feely, but actually, you know, especially in the culture that you and I get to operate in our church, the heart of a man and the soul of a man is actually a beautiful thing. We want to encourage that vulnerability, that transparency, because when we, you know, tap into that, explore it, work it out, we as men become fully alive. We're not hiding in the shadows anymore. We're bringing our stuff out into the light. And when it gets exposed in the light, then the Lord can do something with it.
Yeah, exactly. Things that are hidden will be exposed. And that exposing is, I mean, it's almost like a terrible injury. Like you expose it. If you expose an injury, an open wound to the wrong, you know, even to air or to anything, it's going to get irritated and all that. So we have to flush it out.
Right.
And heal it. And when you heal the brokenhearted, I think it's interesting when you talk about the emotional state, when you peel back and you go, okay, I know I'm seeking out pornography or I'm seeking out an acceptance of a temporary state to make me feel good in the moment because I can't handle the fact that I'm experiencing something else.
Yeah.
And then we come back and we peel it back that it's because of what my dad did and did not do.
Correct. Yeah.
So then we say, okay, well, we're not, as a man, I'm supposed to push that down because I have to do X, Y, or Z forward. Without emotion, so you can't say that a man doesn't have emotion, because that's the lie, because you're experiencing anger, frustration, happiness. Those things are all emotions.
Satisfaction.
Like those things are all emotions. So to say that men are not supposed to have emotions is, you got to recognize as a lie, because you are experiencing emotions. The proper thing would be, men are told they're not supposed to experience the full spectrum of emotion.
Right.
But then when you do, we can pivot. Like me and you can experience different emotions together. And then when I turn to my wife, I can experience a whole different level and gamut of emotions. And then I pivot over to looking and kneeling down to a 4-year-old to affirm and acknowledge them. That's a whole different spectrum of emotion there.
Right.
And then, so to be a fullness of a man, you have to have those full ranges of emotion. The only way you experience those and understand what those are is going back into healing your heart, pressing forward, so that you can put kind of a label of what am I experiencing and why. And then in order to be a good man that has pursuit and can move forward, you can have that full spectrum. So therefore you can actually provide for your family needs and desires and all that. So it's such a weird scenario, and kind of like breaking it is like, no, you actually are experiencing emotions, but you're experiencing like 1/16 of the whole emotional wheel at 1/16 of the depth.
Right.
So,
well, so as a chiropractor and you as a man who has a ton of physical trainer work and working in the exercise world, we know the range of motion is everything. I loved how you kind of said range of emotions. I was like, range of motion. I mean, so if you have a limited range of motion, we have to work on something getting released to restore range of motion. The problem is, it's like, you got to go to work. You got to go see the physical trainer. You got to go see the chiropractor. You got to do something to get that restored range of motion, right? You got to go with the Lord and hopefully a trusted brother that you can sit down at a table with and say, bro, I'm stuck in this cycle of porn. I hate it. It's jacking up my life with my wife. It's ruining my work. It's doing this. It's having this effect here. It's having that effect there. Right. And we break it down with each other.
yes.
And we actually take time. And then because we have a trusted friend who can say, okay, well, let's figure this out. What's going on? Why do you feel like you're doing it? Right. That's where you're kind of like, you're submitting yourself to the physical trainer or to the chiropractor to get the range of motion back. Well, now we're trying to figure out how do we get our full range of emotions back.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing too. We do have to play be very careful about not playing the victim card, right? I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. I've been feeling these back of these issues that I have with my dad. And so I can go, my dad was a schlep and just put everything on him. Or I can say, yeah, he had some serious gaps and really had some sins of omission, the things that he didn't do that really wounded me. But now I'm going to go back and I'm going to address those. I'm going to forgive him. I'm going to release him. I realize that he had his own issues, which gives me compassion for him. And now I have to invite the Lord in to fill in those gaps. In the most flippant, awesome way, he will.
Oh, yeah. It's wild about it.
And restore all these things in us. But you got to go to work, right? And you got to get accountable with a brother and spend time like diving into this stuff. And I don't even really like talking about accountability partners, because then it's like there's the law, right? I want to have grace in my relationship with you. You know what I mean? I'll be like, bro, drop the ball, screwed up this week. You're like, okay, did you ask God for forgiveness? Did you get right? Yeah. Okay, good. Let's move on. Yeah. Right. We don't have to sit there and hammer and beat each other. Like, okay, well, let's hit some parameters. Let's get you on whatever that app is that'll give me a notification when you go on a porn site on your phone. Like, okay, some accountability can be good in some ways, but accountability to me is very legalistic. Yeah. And when you and I meet and when we have chats like this, it's grace-based. Like, you understand, I'm like human being. I'm going to screw up. I'm going to make mistakes, right? So we got to have that going to work, but that is also grace-filled and not judgment-filled, and not like, I can't believe you dropped the ball this week, bro. What's bad?
Yeah. And they're going to beat me down. I'm already beat down. I'm coming to you like hat in hand, man. Now, if it's cyclical and I'm just not, doing the things I need to do to get stronger in certain parts of my identity in that, yeah, of course, you're going to kind of like, slap me around a little bit in the kind way, but that's something that's love, right?
100%.
It's love. It's like, it's both. I 100% agree. And I think it's like just any other word in the English language, accountability has been perverted or skewed. So when you think about accountability, you're just like the ability to take an account. So, hey, my good buddies, my confidants, when I was going through the system that we have for everyone else, they were two friends who I knew I would call every week and say, this is how the week was. This is how I went. This is what I'm recognizing. Good or bad, progress or not, this is what it was. And they would do exactly that. They would say, all right, cool. Let's pray. And declarative. All right, you kind of had this and that go on. All right, so how specifically are we pivoting this? What do you need from me? They knew they could speak into basically my issues. And they also had a full spectrum of understanding of where I'd been, what I'd gone through, where I was planning on going. So they knew they could sit side to side with me, face forward, and we're like, all right, cool. You might feel like you're back there, but remember X, Y, or Z. Let's move forward. It was exactly that. It was just an ability to take an account. And it becomes like leveled. It doesn't work because then I'm going to be like kind of figuring out, man, personally, this might just be me, but like I'm going to figure out subconsciously how to present myself a certain way to a leader if I'm not mature enough so that you see me a certain way.
Yeah, for sure. We all do that.
Right?
We all do that.
And so then I'm like, no, I got to get a guy who I know can grab me by the shirt and we can run together.
Right.
And who I'm not trying to subconsciously like pivot or maneuver or anything like that.
Yeah, this is where, everybody in their life needs a Paul, a Barnabas, and a Timothy, right? This is where Barnabas comes in. Like your buddy that you run with doesn't need to be somebody that you impress or that you feel like is going to be disappointed in you because you let them down because they're your Paul, right? You need that Barnabas, same level friendship and working through the process together and doing the dirty work of getting in that journal and really figuring out like, exploring, why am I doing this? And that's where the friendship can really help too. Like, okay, like I just asked you at the beginning of this podcast, like today, like, dude, what drove you to want to hook up with chicks all the time? Right? That's a very simple question that can help us start to peel back the layers. Like, okay, what was the need? What was the psychological need? Because we all know about the gratification from sex. That one's the easy one, right? It's not about that. It's, the sexual act itself is just that. But there's another reason why we do this, right? And then you and I have talked about this before, and I'm sure you guys have probably heard us say this before. We're medicating pain.
Yeah.
We have some sort of pain in our life that this is giving us some relief from. We're getting a nice dopamine hit from the sexual act or whatever, but we're also getting this egotistical or psychological benefit from it.
Yeah, and to kind of wrap that all the way around, if we are not doing the work to peel it back, then how can you ever expect it to change?
You can't.
You continue to do the same things expecting a different result.
Well, you're blindfolded. It's like you're trying to walk through the forest and you just keep banging into the trees because you can't see why you keep doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You're just blinded.
So the apps that you put up barriers for and have the notifications and all that kind of stuff is a Band-Aid or a medicine to the disease which you are perpetuating.
But we have to get to the root.
Cause. And the last thing I was thinking of when you were talking about was like, when you said the dirty work, we go out and we'll make money at any cost, right? We will go out and drive, get to work, get our hands dirty most times.
And pay for all this.
Oh, we got a timer.
100%.
Yeah.
Let's quick. I can restart that thought.
That's funny. Our timer went off. I know we're going to edit that out. So the last thought on that was like, we are willing to do the work to make money, to look a certain way, to have certain things. How come, and this is the challenge is, I think, wrapping it up is, well, then why not do the work to be able to, what if by doing this dirty work of our heart is exactly the work that you need to do to get where you want to go?
Exactly.
And have what you want to have outside of, like, as believers who are watching this, outside of just I've got a nice car, now I get to post on Instagram and stuff like that. But why won't we do the dirty work to peel back? Now that we're equipped, let's do the dirty work to peel back this stuff so we can heal. And imagine what could happen if you weren't hiding this stuff, you weren't doing that. You'll go to work and work 40 hours a week. We work more than we do anything else in our life. For what?
It's between work and sleep are our two number one things. Right?
So why not do the work to peel back to say, oh, James is, why am I doing this? Oh, why am I seeking out women and this ego and stuff? Dad. Okay, I need to work on that. And then all of a sudden my life starts to get better. Why not do that dirty work as hard as we work for the other things,
Right.
if what we say is important, that's just kind of like the challenge. We got to flip that a little bit. It's going to be work, right? You're going to disrupt a pattern. It's going to feel abrasive, hurt. You're going to dive into emotional states that you didn't know were available to you. That stuff is challenging.
To your point, like we will hire coaches and stuff and pay lots of money to be a part of an online group or, mastermind or whatever it is that we do, in order to do the work on our business, but we ignore the health of our own soul.
We'll allow ourselves to break down emotionally, physically, mentally to go after that thing because we're hiding the very thing that's keeping us sick.
Right. Right.
then-
And then part two of that, like you said, it's really, really difficult to do because these are neural pathways that have been set or whatever. And we've been taught that men are supposed to be a certain way. And, when you start to really challenge your physical brain and your soul,
Yep.
it's tough, man, because you're having to like really press into some new territory that this is not familiar with
No, not at all.
and doesn't have a framework for working with.
So on that,
Yeah.
we'll cover that in part 2. So part 2, we'll go more into that part and probably other trails to help you guys restore your mind and renew your identity. And so, yeah, really excited for part 2. We'll get after in the next one.